Alright, there we go. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. Looks like I had a bit of an audio issue there. Got it fixed. Of course, this streaming stuff always likes to break when you want to use it. Thank you for everybody for tuning in to another Antares Shipyard live stream. Tonight we're going to be doing something a little different. I'm not going to be doing any kind of um, I'm not going to be streaming a game tonight, as you probably have seen on the Facebook community posts, the community at large posts, and that's probably the reason why you're here. I'm going to do a Starfleet Tabletop Simulator Academy, kind of just teaching people how to play the game, attacking on Tabletop Simulator. I'm going to try and run through as much information on it as possible tonight. Um, I know it seems very daunting if you've already opened the mod, looked at it, and you're not 100% sure what to do. It looks daunting, but the more you play with it, the easier it gets. I promise. Um, just quick quick thing about myself. My name is Jerry. I do run the Antares Shipyard Facebook page. Along with, I am heavily involved in the Fremont Reformation league that we are doing, the online tabletop simulator tournaments that we're doing, and I'll get more into that towards the end of the live stream. Um, I've been playing Attack Wing now since 2000. Oh, I found the game in 2014 when I went to a Comic Con in Philadelphia. I had no idea it existed until I just saw a wall of ships, and it was wonderful and beautiful, and that's what brought me in. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, always have been, um, but I've been playing since 2014. I didn't get to start playing in a group setting until about 2017. Um, our local play group is actually fairly large here in Michigan. Um, so I got the benefit of doing that and learning from some of those players. And then I competed in the 2019 national tournament where I got to meet some of the guys from the Fremont Reformation project: Jeff Sonis, James Sonis' son, Scott Altman, the eventual 2019 world champion, um, and many more amongst them. I got to meet Matt Dobson, the 2019 U.S. champion. I actually played against his fleet. That was a eye-opening match. Um, but I think that's enough about me. Let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of why you guys are here. Um, so we're going to start off with, if you don't have, and this section is going to be more for those who don't have um, tabletop yet, and they're interested or curious. Um, I know some of you guys who are probably watching live have it already, and that's great. We'll get there. Um, we'll get to that part fairly soon. This is just for replayability for anybody who's coming in after the live streams are done, and are just generally curious on how to do this. All right, let's turn on my monitor here. So here we have the Steam store page. So to play tabletop, you will need to have Steam. Once you go to the store page, all you have to do is type in tabletop, and it's generally the first thing that pops up. Right there, it's the first result, and it's actually on sale now until the end of March or mid-April. I forget the end date. It just went on sale today. It is actually 50% off. So that's a pretty good deal going on right now. Um, Sorry for those of you guys who are going to be watching this in the future. I will say that Tabletop Simulator goes on sale often. So if you don't want to pay a full price, just keep checking back. So once we are here, there's the sale price, 50%. Offer ends March 29th, so it's on sale for the next couple of days. Um, so once you do that, it will download into your Steam library. So you're going to go over to your Steam library, and there you'll see Tabletop Simulator sitting right there. So from here, now we need to find the Star Trek Attack Wing mod. And to do that, we want to go to the Workshop tab. So we click on the Workshop tab. It'll bring us to this nice little page here, and you can find pretty much any board game. Any board game is going to be here. But for today's purpose, let's go ahead and let's type in Attack Wing, and then hit search. And there we are. So we're going to have a bunch of things pop up for Attack Wing. These mods with the Attack Wing banner here and the Galaxy class ship, those are old original Attack Wing mods. The one you guys are looking for to subscribe to is the Star Trek Attack Wing Setup by Crazy Vulcan. This mod is the most up to date, and it's actually I help Crazy Vulcan keep the mod up to date. So that's how I know this is up to date. It's even got the new faction pack stuff in it as we speak, along with the Alliance stuff. So we definitely want that. So you click on that, and down here, mine says subscribed because I've obviously subscribed to the mod. If you haven't done this part yet, this will say subscribe. All you have to do is hit subscribe. It's completely free, and it doesn't download or anything. It just adds it right onto your tabletop simulator. So, and that's really it. Once you do that, you have the Attack Wing mod, and you are ready to play. So, first thing we're going to need to go into this mod is we're going to need a fleet. So moving into the kind of the fleet building section, one of the first things I like to do before I even open Tabletop is to actually have a fleet built in Utopia. And if you don't know what Utopia is, I'm not going to run through the full how to use Utopia. I'm assuming that most of you guys have experience with Utopia. If you don't, I just put the link in the chat box for you guys. Utopia is a great resource if you don't want to build a fleet on the table. So there are technically two ways to fleet build with the Attack Wing mod. The easiest way is going to be through the Utopia website. So let me pull up Utopia. So there we have it. That is, let's close out of that. All right, there we have it. This is the blank Utopia slate here. I did go ahead before the live stream, and I actually built just a thematic test fleet here. Nothing that I'm actually going to play in a competition, but stuff to show. Once you have all your cards picked out and you are at the point limit that you are comfortable with playing, or that you and your opponent have set up for one another, you go up to this export button here in the top right hand corner of Utopia, and then you'll see the traditional export where it's listing the card names and their cost and then the total ship cost. That's good. What we want to use here is this Tabletop Sim export. So we're going to click on that, and it's going to give us a bunch of numbers and letters. These are the card ID numbers. So this is specifically used for the builder that is inside Tabletop Simulator. So we want to click in this box. It'll turn everything blue, and then we'll just hit Control C for copy, or you can right click and copy. But we're going to need that for the builder. Now let's go ahead. We've built our fleet. We have the Utopia builder codes. So now let's go back to our Steam library and let's open Tabletop Simulator. Alright, so we're going to kind of split this into another section here. Now that we have our fleet built in Utopia, we are going to open up a game of Attack Wing. And this is how you do that. Now, to open a game of Attack Wing, you're going to go to Create. And there's going to be a single player option here, or a multiplayer option. The multiplayer option is what we use for the Reformation League, and that creates what's called a server for other players to join, and you can create a password so that you make sure no other public people can come in. We'll get more into that when we're talking about how to play with other people. For now, let's go into the single player option here. And then we're going to pull it up, and we'll go to the workshop tab here. This will just pull up anything that we have downloaded off the workshop. And we are looking for the Star Trek Attack Wing setup. So I'll click on that, and we'll click load. And then here we go. It'll take a second for it to load in. It's just got to load all the graphics in. It'll be, depending on how many times you've been inside of it, it'll either go quick or it'll be a little slower, just because it's got to save the images to your cache or your cache. Okay, so we're here. That is how you open the game of Attack Wing. As you can see, there are two boards. One is yellow and green, and one is red versus blue. We'll get more into the components that are here on the table in a second, but let's continue with our fleet building section of this here. So we have our list from Utopia copied still. So this section up here, where you see this kind of floating text here, this is the builder. So what we want to do is we want to take that text that we copied from Utopia, and you can either hit F7 or you can hit this text button here. For this purpose, I'm going to hit the text button, and then a gray box appeared around the text. So that means that we can now edit the text that's in this, so we can replace the text. So I will say that if you don't have this, if in this box correctly, it will create another text box, and all you do is just delete it. But you want this little toolbar here to appear. That's when you know that you're inside of this text box, because see, if I go down to this text box, that toolbar appears behind the cards there. That if I click on this, it'll allow me to edit that. It's not something I want to do at the moment. So we want to click here. It'll select all the text for us, and then we're just going to hit Control V. And there is our list that was generated by Tabletop Simulator. Or not Tabletop Simulator, by Utopia, excuse me. Now we're going to switch back over to the hand, the grab, at the very top there, the pointer finger. And we're going to hit Build List. So once we hit this Build List, what Utopia is going, or what the Attack Wing mod is going to do is going to look into its internal folders here that are just off the screen, and it's going to pull the cards that are specific to these ID codes. And it should only pull those specific cards. So here we go. We'll hit build, and Attack Wing, the mod will spit everything out right here to the left of that note card. It should spit out everything, including the ship models. So now we can zoom in here. So now we can see, if we hover over this, we've got 10 cards, and I can see the Reliant and the Enterprise. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down the left mouse and select everything. And then I'm going to hold down on the left mouse again to pick everything up in a group. And what we're going to do is we're going to move over. Oh, and we'll get to some of the shortcuts for the movements as well, for the camera, for those of you who don't know how to do that. I also have a graphic that I made for that. Let me put it up in the chat box. You guys can have that as well. Just kind of some of the basic keyboard shortcuts that you'll need to know. Okay, so we've got our ships and our cards. Now you can see that everything is kind of on top of each other, and that's okay. That's fine. So the cards are all grouped together. Tabletop Simulator does a nice job of grouping the cards together. So in order to separate this stuff, we can just left click and hold on the cards and it'll pull the cards apart. So there are all the cards, and then the ships, we can just quickly pick one up off the other and separate them that way. So we've got the Reliant and the Enterprise. So there are two schools of thought here to set the fleet up. One is you can grab and quickly move a card off to reveal the card underneath, and you can do that multiple times. Or what I like to do is if you right click on the card stack, you can actually go to search, and this will bring up every card that's in the stack. So there's all 10 cards right there. If you're looking for a specific card, if you have a huge stack of cards, you can type right here in this top search bar, say we're looking for Sulu. You can just type in Sulu and it'll bring up every Sulu that's in that stack. Okay. And then from here, what we can do, is we can actually, if we hover over these cards, it'll enlarge them. And then if you hold down with the left click mouse, it'll actually move the card around, and you can actually, this will be like pulling a card from a deck of cards, and then you can just let go on the table there, and it'll set the ship or the card right on the table. So the fleet that I made is just based off the Wrath of Khan here, and just some familiar faces. So I will just get them pulled and set them up as, well, this is how I set my cards up on the table. You can set yours up to however you would like. So there's Sulu, Savik. Here's the USS Reliant with Khan. Joachim, and you'll see that my search thing just disappeared. That's because there are no other cards in the stack. So Pavel Chekhov is the last one. So that's a normal thing that'll happen, is that'll disappear like that. I tend to like to set my cards up like that when I'm playing tabletop. Just it's my preference. You can set your cards up however you would like. So let's quickly get into some of these keyboard shortcuts, just so that you guys know, because I feel like I am not giving you all that information at the moment. We've kind of moved on into fleet building. So we'll put fleet building on pause for a second. We will get into the shortcuts and how to run around the mod here. Again, I put the shortcuts. There is a shortcuts graphic that I made. I put it in the chat box there for you guys to download. It is a JPEG file. I just give some of the basic stuff, just for reference. So the first thing you need to know is to move the camera around the table. To do that, we're going to be using the WASD keys. W moves the camera up. S moves the camera down. A is to the left and D is to the right. So that is how you're able to center that. Now, the other camera tricks here you can do with your mouse key, or with your mouse. Your center. That's how you zoom in and out. So I scroll with my scroll ball here. I can zoom in and I can zoom out. The other thing you can do is you can right click and hold with your mouse, and that'll allow you to adjust your camera angle on the table. So you can go from top down to kind of POV. There's a couple different things you can do that way. Those are the main camera shortcuts that you need to know to navigate around. Um, it takes a minute to get used to, um, depending on your background in gaming. I never really played that many computer games that really had me use a WASD before. So it took me a bit to get used to using WASD to move around. Excuse me. Okay. Now, the other thing is sometimes things spawn in and they're kind of crooked. Um, so there you can rotate cards just a little bit and either doing whoops. So you can click on a right click on a card and it'll bring up this menu here. This menu is full of a bunch of stuff that you guys can get into. We're gonna talk about a few things here, um, but one of the things is the rotate. So as you can see, Pavel Chekhov's going for a ride. He's rotating to the left. So that's one way to rotate it. Now, if say you rotate something on accident and you're not sure how to fix it, you can hover over the card, and once that white box is around that card, that means that you have that card selected, and you can hit E on your keyboard, and that will spin the card around. That'll spin it, rotate it to the right. The same thing with Q. Q rotates to the left. So you can rotate cards just like that. Say you're wanting to be on the red side of the board, which is up here towards the top of your screen, but you set your cards up like this. No problem. You can hold down the left key and select everything, and then what I highly recommend is you grab and it'll pick everything up off the table, and then you can hold down Q and it'll spin the entire fleet. Same thing with E, it'll spin the other way. So you can set your ships up, you can set your fleet up however you like. So let's go ahead and move my fleet down to the, I guess the red side's over here, to the red side. So I like to set my table up like that, so everything is in front of me. So now that you know how to move around the table and you know how to build a fleet in and set your fleet up, let's talk about some of the components that are here on the table. One of the components that you're going to need when you set your fleet up is going to be the maneuver dials. Hold on. I think let's go back to fleet building real quick. So I said that there was another way to do fleet building if you don't want to use Utopia. Utopia is great and it's a good resource, but if you don't want to use it, there is this thing up here called the Island of No Touchy. In these folders here, there are cards for everything. I'm not going to open the Federation folder because that's got 439 cards. So let's open the Kazon. Say you are wanting to build a fleet with Kazon, you right click on that and that'll open all of the cards for the Kazon faction. I know they've been rolled into Indy, but this mod was created before that was done. So everything is still split, which makes it easy when you're doing all the card scans and everything. Everything's in here in alphabetical order, so you should be able to find it. If you can't, you can always go in and type in the search bar and it should find the card you're looking for. So you can pull cards one at a time like that. I don't really recommend that, but it's completely up to you. It's your style. I will say this island here, do not delete anything from this, as it will mess the game up for you. So these things here, I wouldn't even mess with anything on this table. Just pull the stuff here. These two that do not have faction symbols on them, this top one here is full of all the resources that are in the game. So your fleet captains, your flagships, your sickbay, co-pilot, everything's in there. And then this bottom one is all the 3D ship renderings. I don't want to open that right now because that takes a long time to open, because it's a lot of image files to load in. But every ship that you need, both named and generic, are in there. So you can pull them out one at a time as well. The other thing for fleet building is that the maneuver cards for the ships are right next to the build list button. Oops. Well, I didn't want to do that. But that's okay. Let's find... We don't really need them to be like that, so we'll group them back up, put them back where they go, and we'll go into search. What I need is the Miranda class and the Constitution right here. Now, if I'm moving too fast for anybody in the stream, please let me know. If you have a question about anything, please put it in the chat box. I am watching the chat box as I do this, so I will be able to address your questions pretty much live. I was kind of hoping this forum would be a lot easier for people to learn. So there we go. We got the maneuver cards added with our fleet here. So now we need maneuver dials. That's one of the components that's on this board here. There are two types of maneuver dials. So here, right here in this section of the table, we have these nice little pads, which we'll get to. We have a box that's got a bunch of extra stuff, which we will also get to. But we're going to focus on these two things right here. This first dial is the first iteration, the first generation attack wing dial that was programmed into this mod. It's a very simple dial. It's got the maneuvers on it. Zoom in on it here. The only issue with this dial is that it has every maneuver in the game, so it's not ship specific. So that is one thing you can use. But the dials the new version 2 dials that we have, we just put in the game not too long ago. These are ship specific, class specific, I should say. So we're going to want to pull a Miranda class and the Constitution class. So these dials only have the movements for that specific ship. And the way we use these dials, we will get to. But for right now, what I like to do, so this is the Miranda class dial. I like to put it on top of my maneuver card along with the Constitution class. Now, you'll notice we are almost done with fleet building. Really, the only thing we need now are shield tokens. And you can see on the left-hand side of the screen there, towards the bottom, is a bar that's got shield, disabled, time tokens, and crit tokens. This is just kind of a token toolbar. You click on the shield, it'll spit a shield out. Same thing with the disabled, time tokens, and crits. So, what I like to do is you can spit out as many of these as you want, or you can hit Control C and Control V, and it'll copy paste. So let's delete all those. Sometimes that happens where you delete something like that. No big deal. We'll just copy and paste this toolbar here, and we'll spin it around. Okay. So we don't have any extra modifiers on this, so everything is base value. So the Enterprise needs 4 shields. So we'll spit one token out, and what I like to do is the tokens are also, like the cards, stackable. So you can hit Control V 4 times, and you'll see there it says 4 shields are in this stack. So when you take damage, you can pull one of these shields off like you do with the card, just real quick, just grab and move, and it'll say 3 shields left. Again, this is completely down to player preference. This is what I like. What some players like is doing this, is having the shields like this next to them. That way they can flip them if they need to, or just delete them. That's completely fine too. Okay, so we've got everything we need for this fleet right now. So let's get this fleet saved. So to save a fleet so we can bring it into another game or play against a buddy, is we're going to select everything by just holding down the left mouse key or the left mouse button and just selecting everything. And then we're going to right click on one of the cards and we want this button here, this save object. It's going to say save objects in root folder. That's fine. Name it whatever you want. So we're going to call this TTS a CAD test. Actually, let's name it AA TTS test. That way it's on top. So now that's saved. So I'm going to delete this fleet out, and we're going to bring that fleet that we just saved into this game so you guys can see how that's done. Excuse me. Okay. So, say we just got pulled into a game of Attack Wing. We just loaded it up, and now we want to bring our fleet in. So we're going to go into Objects, and we'll go into Save Objects here. And then right here, we'll see the AATT test. So this is something a lot of people get stuck on, is how to bring a build in. Don't click on it because that will spawn it pretty much in the middle of the entire table. What I highly suggest is kind of getting your camera aligned to where you're going to have the most amount of free table here on the left, and just grab and drag and then put it right in the middle. And it should spawn everything kind of where you want it. It's kind of a guessing game, but that way it's not spawning on top of anything, kind of like the Reliant just spawned on top of that token bar. We can move these cards over and set them up how we like. Okay, so that is how to build a fleet, save a fleet, and load a fleet in. Now let's talk about some of the other components that are on the table here that you guys need to be aware of for playing a game. You've got your standard damage deck here next to this red box. A lot of players like to shuffle. That's another shortcut key is R. The R key shuffles the deck for you, or you can right click and shuffle. Alright. A lot of players like to do that just because there's a myth going around that the first card you pull is going to be a warp core breach. I don't think that's true. We've tested it; it's not true, but it's a myth that goes around, and players do it because they're superstitious. The red box. Let's talk about the boxes. So, you can see my name at the top right of the screen is not colored. I am still white. If I were to change the color of my player, well, I'm not going to change my color yet. This box here is the hidden zone box. I've seen this before. I've heard rumblings about it, that there is some common misconception that your opponent in Tabletop Simulator playing Attack Wing can cheat because they can see your maneuver dials. I'm going to show you right now that that's not true. I'm not going to 100% lie to you either. There is a way that can happen. But if it does ever happen, it's very noticeable. And I will show you how to spot it. So, let's say I want to set my maneuver for my Constitution class here. I don't want to set it out in the open because I don't want my opponent to know what maneuver I'm doing with it. So I'm going to pick my dial up and I'm going to put it in this red box. And as you can see, it disappears. So I'm going to set it down in that red box. It's gone. I cannot see it. If I were to change my color of my player to red, that box becomes translucent, and you can see the dial that's in there, and you can manipulate the dial. If I set my player color, and I apologize, this is going to flip the camera around, but if I set my color player to blue, you'll notice that that dial is, you cannot see that dial. It's not there. So the opposing player cannot see what you're setting. Now, the way that a player can cheat and see what you're doing, they would have to change the color again. And there's this black game master. It allows you to see all hidden information. Now you can see that both of these boxes are translucent, and I can see the dial. If I were to move this Miranda dial here, I can see it. Now, I say that this is noticeable because my player color at the top right of the screen is black. It's not red, it's not blue, it's black. So if your opponent is black, just know that they can see what you're doing. Let's go ahead and change this back to red. So that is the maneuver boxes here, or the hidden boxes. So you can put anything in there from hidden cards. Maneuver dials is what is most commonly used. Say that you have a card that you are wanting to, say you have like cork attached to one of your ships, and you're wanting to hide Pavel Chekhov. You can either load your fleet in and just flip him over. The only thing I would warn you about that is, and it's really if you care or you don't care, the opposing player can tell what faction your hidden card is. Because I did, when I uploaded these new card skins in, I actually put the back on as well. I didn't put the upgrade backs, so that way no players could tell, but the faction backs are there. One of the common ways that we deal with this issue is we do the card stack. So now Pavel Chekhov is hidden underneath Joachim. To reveal him, you can discard Joachim or just move him off to the side. And that's another keyboard shortcut, F. The letter F is to flip things. The other way you can flip is by right-clicking and hit flip, and that'll flip that. Or you can choose to hide a stack of cards here, and just tell your opponent what cards you're going to be pulling when you do that. Those are your two ways to do hidden cards. Disable time tokens and crits, we all know how to use those. You just click and then you put how many ever is supposed to be on that card. There is a range ruler here. It's not 100% necessary to use, but it does have a use. And we'll get to that once we get into setting ships and playing on the board. Over here on the right hand side of the map, we have the initiative token. It's not really a token, it's an initiative arrow. But it reminds you who shoots first, who moves first. And with the F button, you can flip it, and it'll just remind you what you're doing. So if there's ever initiative ties, that's how you can keep track of that. This is the standard setup map for Attack Wing. This nice gray area here is the setup box for your fleet. And then, of course, we've got range 2 and range 1 from the center. So this is nice in setting up some of these scenarios and OPs that we play. And we'll get into how to change the map a little later, because there are two ways to do it. We have the Mr. Map here, and then on the other board is the old way. I'll show you both ways. we have 3 infinity bags here. 2 of them have defense dice and attack dice, red and green respectively, and then the blue bag contains mission tokens. So let's go ahead and zoom in on these. So standard mission token just says mission on it, and you can pull as many of these out of here as you want, or you can do the copy paste method and do it that way. Same thing with attack and defense dice. You can pull as many out as you want, or you can copy and paste. So, attack and defense dice. Let's talk about that for a second. Say you're playing a game and you want to roll the attack and defense dice. You pull out as many dice as you need, depending on the weapon and range and all that. Same thing with defense dice. Now to roll all of these, you're going to select everything, and then you're going to hit the letter R. That's the keyboard shortcut for roll. So R, and you can tap it as many times as you want. You can hit it once, and it'll just do that puny roll, or you can hit it 3 times, and the dice will come flying up at you and land. That's how you do that. Now, this is a good roll. We've got, zoom in here, we've got 2 hits, a crit, and a battle station. Say we have a battle station next to our ship, so how do we convert this? Well, each dice face has been assigned a number on the keyboard, so 1 through 6. Yes. No, 1 through 8, right? Yeah, 1 through 8. It's an 8-sided die. So, as you can see, if you scroll over the dice, it'll tell you which face it's sitting on. So, if we wanted to change this hit here to a crit, we can hit number 1, and it'll change it to the crit face. Number 2 is a blank. 3 is a hit. 4 is a blank. 5 is battle stations. 6 is a hit. 7 is battle stations, and 8's a hit. And the same thing with the defense dice, 1 through 8, and it'll tell you the dice face. The other way to do this is you can right click on a dice, and you can go to the rotational value, and then you can change it that way. It doesn't tell you what face is on which value. So if you're trying to get a battle station, you can hit the numbers until it gets to the battle station face or the face that you're wanting. The most common ones I use, especially for converting battle stations, I know just from my own experience in playing that the number 3 will move that over to a hit, or number 1 is the only crit. So that's the dice in a nutshell. Fairly simple and easy to use. You just hit R for roll. There is a roll option in the menu, but it just does the puny roll. We highly recommend when we're playing to hit R at least 3 times. That way you get a good rotation on the dice and they come down. Moving on, we have the time clock. So standard games of Attack Wing are set to 60-minute intervals. The one thing I will warn everybody about this timer here, you right click and then you can set the timer by hovering over the timer here, and it sets in seconds. So the value for an hour in seconds is 3,600. And I like to put in 3,601, and then you hit this little play button next to it, and you'll see the timer change to 1 hour, 1 minute, and then I try and stop it at the 1 hour mark. Now to start and stop the timer, you just simply hover over it and click, and it'll start and stop. You'll hear the beeping as well. Let me turn the computer volume on. Or my desktop audio might not be working for me. should just be default. Let's see. Well, my desktop audio might not be working. I don't know what's going on there. So, let's move on. I'm not going to waste too much time trying to get that corrected. Alright, and that is pretty much everything that's on the side of the board that you need to know about. You will see that there are maneuver templates here next to the builder as well. All of the templates are here, and we don't generally use them to move the ships. You can play that way if you so choose. We use the templates mainly for bumping, and if we have time, I will get into that. We're looking pretty good on time. Now, let's talk about this stack of stuff. We've already talked about the movement dials. What we need to talk about now are these 4 items here. I call these the pads. That's what they're kind of based on. This red one here is for the large base, so that's going to be your Xindi weapon ship type ships. We have the large cube, so that's for the oversized board cube. Tactical cubes for the large base as well. This nice Cardassian looking one here, that is for the Deep Space Nine model. And then right here, this is for our normal base. So we need a couple of these to play a game of attack wing. We have 2 ships, so we need 2 copies of them. You can right click and you can copy, or you can Control C, and then you can Control V, paste. So I've pasted 2 copies of those pads there. Now, the pads, these control the movement and actions for each of your ships. So everything is here. You can see the action bar for all attack wing ships is here. Battle station, scan, invade, cloak, target lock. All the movements are here. And these buttons here at the bottom are the sensor echoes. Aux powers here as well. So you'll notice that if we click on something, it's going to tell us error in script. Error in script. What we need to do is we need to get these ships synced up to these templates. So how do we do that? Sorry, took a drink of water. So how do we do that? What we can do is we can put the ship right on top of the pad and hit sync, and it'll sync it right up. This is another one of these pro tips that I'm going to give out here. Right click on your ship, and at the very bottom you'll see this space here with the name. What a lot of us players like to do is name our ship, the captain, and the skill. So that's Mr. Spock 6, and the Reliant becomes Con Sing 8. Now what does that do exactly? Well, if I scroll over the ship, I can now see that my ship, this Enterprise here, is Spock 6. Reliant is now Con Sing 8. And it's important, especially if you're running multiple copies of a ship, especially like a generic ship. If you've got 3 Borels and you're running kind of a Borel swarm, they're each going to be named Borel, and it'll get confusing with this next part. So let's go ahead and get these ships synced to these. What I like to do is I like to do lowest captain skill starting on the left, going right. Everybody's different on how they set these up. This is just how I do it. These dials also have a sync function. We're not going to worry about that at this point in time. Um, well, actually, we'll go ahead and do it just so I can show you for those people who are running multiple ships of the same type. So to sync your ships up, you simply just set your ship in the middle of the pad, and then you hit the sync button. Let's get this a little bit centered here. So we'll set the Reliant in the middle of its pad, and we'll hit sync. So, two ways to know that your ship has been synced. The first one is it'll say down here in the chat box there, Spock 6 found, or the name of your ship found. The second and easier way to do it is if you can see this nice circle with a dash through it. This ship is now synced. You can see that the Reliant does not have that circle. So we can hit sync, and there it is. Consync 8 is found, and then there's that circle. So let's go ahead and set these ships up here in the start area. We'll zoom out a little. Okay, so to sync a maneuver dial, you don't have to set it on top of the ship. You can set the maneuver dial next to the ship, and if you hit sync, it'll change the name up here at the top to whatever the name of the ship is. So in this case, it says Mr. Spock 6. Now, let's plan out a maneuver for the Enterprise. So we're going to take our maneuver dial. We're going to go over into our hidden zone here, and we're going to flip our dial up. Let's say we're going to go fairly aggressive, and we're going to go four straight. So, to set your dial, you're going to hit F for flip. So it'll flip its dial to the face, and it'll be face down. And players like to place their dials next to their ships, just kind of like how the rulebook shows you're supposed to do it. Again, this is a preference thing. This is what we do in the tournaments. Just to know, that's just alerting the other player that your ship is ready, or your maneuver's been chosen. And these maneuver dials, think of them as if you were playing on the table directly in front of you. So you're going to be flipping it upside down and then flipping it back. To reveal, you flip it, and you tell your opponent, we're doing a 4 white. So now, let's zoom out here. This is the Mr. Spock pad. You can see it's named Mr. Spock 6. This one's named Con. Now we're going to find the 4 straight, and we're just going to click on 4 straight, and there she goes. The ship will move automatically, and it's super nice. We don't need the templates. Now say we moved, and we want our action to be a scan action. So we hit scan, and it places the token right next to the ship. At battle station, places that right next to the ship. Now say we wanted to target lock the Reliant. So we're going to hit the target lock button. Alright. You'll notice that it only spit out one target lock token. That's okay, because your target lock token is named, so it's Mr. Spock 6, and it's the color of your player. So you know this is a red player target lock from Mr. Spock 6. The blue player will have blue target locks. The same thing with green and yellow. It'll be to their corresponding color. And you just simply place it next to the other ship, and now you know Mr. Spock 6 has a target lock on the Reliant. That's really the gist of playing Attack Wing right there. How to get the ships to move. From here, you pretty much have the basics you need to play. I'm still going to go over some other stuff, changing the maps and whatnot. But feel free to play with anything that's on the table. Kind of experiment with it. I don't have a fleet or another person to play live, but let's talk about the map. So, say you guys are setting up. We're setting our ships up. this line here is as far as you can go to set up in the in the map here. Now, a lot of people have trouble trying to get their ship up to the line. What I highly recommend is don't set your ship up in directly in the center of your camera. Shift your camera over so that the ship is either on your right or your left. Because when I pick this ship up, and again, you just hold your left mouse trigger down to pick it up, you can see a shadow. That shadow is fairly accurate to where the ship will land. So if that shadow is touching that yellow line, that's where that ship will land. And that's kind of my cheat on how to set my fleet up like as how I want it. And again, that same cheat extends to the cards. Because the cards, you can see the spacing in here are fairly random. I like to have everything nice and straight. It's just that's how my OCD is. But if I were to pick up Savick, you can see that there's a shadow underneath her card as well. So you can kind of line them up and get them pretty close to being a straight line. What else? Let me look at my notes here. So we've gone over where to find TTS and how to get the attack wing mod. We went over how to create a fleet in Utopia and bring it in. We talked about importing a fleet, saving a fleet, bringing it back in. Let's see here. Talked about the movement pads. Alright, we talked about the game elements. Oh yes, let's talk about the maps. That's where I was at. So let's set both of our ships up. I don't know, let's do something funky with the Reliant. Let's do this. So again, you can see I have the shadow. I'm setting it up on an angle. So I'm looking at the shadow that's up in the upper right hand corner for it. Bang. Right on the line. Now say that there's something that you're trying to see and you don't want to zoom in all the way. There is a keyboard shortcut. It's kind of a random one. M. The letter M as in Mike. It's the magnifying glass. So it'll pull it up and it'll zoom it in for you. Now the other shortcut I'm going to give you right now while I'm thinking about it. If you are, say you're zoomed out because you're trying to assess the landscape of the board and you're trying to see what cards you have and you don't want to zoom in to read it, if you hit the Alt key, the ALT, it'll bring up a big copy of the card for you so you can read it. That's a nice feature that a lot of people don't know about. Of course, you can also use the magnifying glass on that, but the Alt key helps. Okay, so before we change the map, let's talk about some of the other game elements that come in this. Objective tokens, planet tokens. So, we've talked about these pads. This box here is filled with extra attack wing items. So all you have to do is right click on the box and go to search. And it's going to bring up a bunch of stuff. So we have 3D objective tokens. Here's the flat objective token. We have a 3D planet, the flat planet, the wormhole. Here's the planet killer, the doomsday machine. There's all sorts of things in here. Gold press latinum tokens are in here. There's a box in here for Star Trek Alliance. So that's here. Drone tokens. We will need to talk about those. So I'm going to pull that out as well. Here are your standard minefield tokens. And then we have a 3D minefield token. So let's pull out the 3D objectives. 3D planet. Along with the flat stuff. Alright. So there we go. You can see that here's the flat objective token. pull one of these out. There is a 3D objective token. In this bag here, you can again right click and hit search, and that'll show you what what 3D objective tokens are here. So you've got the debris, the derelict ship, the 3 space stations, and the asteroid field. Those are the 3 objective tokens that come, with the starter sets. The cool thing about the 3D objectives is not only do they look cool, but if you hover over them, it'll tell you what they do for the obstacle scenario that is run at the worlds and national tournaments, along with some of the other tournaments that we run here on TTS, Tabletop Simulator. So it's completely up to preference what you use. We like to use the 3D objective tokens, just because they make everything look nice. This is the planet that comes in the first starter set, I believe. So it's got the blue and the desert side. But here is our 3D planet that we like to use. You can see it's 3D as in it's got some girth to it. The cool thing about that planet is it also has, just like the dice, the keys are set to faces. So you can change the planets up. I think there are a total of 9. And each one of them is different. They used to have rings around them, but I think we did away with the rings because ships were having issues getting bumped into them. So let's place the planet on the board here. And let's just make this easy. We're going to place the planet right there. And we'll make it that one. We'll call it regular. Okay, so you've got your planet element on the board. Now, here is another tip that we like to do a lot in the tournament games when we have map elements like this. As you can see right now, you can kind of scroll over it and it'll select the planet with that white outline. That means that you can pick it up and move it. And that's a problem sometimes, especially if a ship bumps into it and players are trying to sort out the bump. So here is another keyboard shortcut, the letter L. And if you hover over the planet, make sure it's selected, so it's got that white ring around it, and you hit L, that white ring goes away. And now you can see that I cannot pick that planet up, I cannot move it, so that locks that planet right there, right on the map. Now, there is another way to do this, and I'm going to show you with the flat planet token here. Whoops. Say we want to lock, and I'm not going to actually put it on the map. Say we want to lock this planet right there. We can right click. Where is it? If we go to the toggles menu, there is a lock function. So we can lock it down, and there it is. So that is locked. That planet can't move. Okay, so say the player you're playing against has their fleet set up. Our fleet is set up. You have the game elements out there that you want. So now we need to load in a map. So Mr. Map is relatively new. You're going to hit search, and I'm going to warn everybody now. When you right click and you hit search on Mr. Map, it's going to load in a bunch of these maps. It's going to take a minute or two for these maps to load in. Because again, if you haven't opened it before, it's going to try and keep the images in your cache. But these maps are nice, and we like to. They look really nice. I think some of them were borrowed from the X-Wing streamers. Yep, there's that one. It's got a couple Star Destroyers in it. But for this, let's go ahead and use this. So just like the cards, these maps come out in tiles. So you can grab, click, and pull one straight out and put it right on the board. Now, to get the map to change, you do want to put this in the middle of the board, and then there are 3 buttons here. You've got rotate right, rotate left, so that'll change the map around. And the center button is load this map. So you want to have this map kind of in the center. Once you hit load this map, it'll change everything. And then let's just hit search again on this, and then we'll just put this right back in here. So there we go. We have a full map with our ship set up in the starting area, game elements on the board. Now, if you don't want to use the Mr. Map feature, if you go over, let's go over to the yellow and green side of the board. It has the older style map system that was being used. So say you set your ships up here and you've got everything you need. All you would do is hit next map. Excuse me. You'd hit up next map and it'll bring in a map, and you can use that. So let's go back. There we go. Okay. So we have a map in. Now, let's do a scenario where, say, your 2 ships bumped. So let's move the Enterprise ahead forward 1. And let's move Con ahead, General Bank 3. Now, let's put this up here so we can zoom in here. Now, Con, we did a General Bank 3 and it has clearly bumped. It is resting on top of the Enterprise. So, to get the Reliant to move back to where it was, all we have to simply do is hit undo, and it moves back to its starting position, or the position it was in before we moved. Now, to sort out the bump, there are 2 ways to do this. So you can move and then pick up your ship and kind of set it where you think it's going to be, or you can come get the template, the maneuver template from the top there, spin it around, and kind of line that shadow up with the front of the base there. And then we can move the Reliant up based on where it's going to land. Now, I will say that this definitely works better with 2 players, because the second player can then move this template out of the way. Whereas if I grab the template, it's going to bring the Reliant with me. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to copy this template. I'm going to paste it over here, and I'm going to delete it. So there is the Reliant in its bump form. And then we can go ahead and just move this template off to the side. So there is that. That's how you deal with a bump in Attack Wing. Well, in Tabletop Simulator, I mean. Now, say we are piloting a Klingon Cavort, the IKS Vorn, one of my favorite ships. By the way, I would love to hear what your favorite ship is. You can put it in the chat box. Again, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box. If I'm moving too fast for you, just let me know. I can slow down. Or if there's something that you want me to cover over again, please let me know. I see there's some people watching. So I highly encourage that kind of community engagement. So say we're flying the IKS Vorn, and the Vorn does have a come about on its dial. I believe it is a 3 come about, and it's red. So how do we do that? Well, in a normal game of Attack Wing, you would you do the 3 template, and then you would turn your ship around. It's no different here. So we're going to do 3 head with the Enterprise. Let me move this with us so we can see everything going on. So we did a 3 head with the Enterprise, which is demonstrated here. And then we have this nice little come about, so we can spin the ship around. And then you would obviously put your aux power token next to it. Now you might be saying, well, we have a Borg ship. We're playing Scout 608. And oh yeah, the scimitar is good stuff. You should definitely check out running the scimitar with some Ferengi on board, especially with those new Ferengi photon torpedoes. Scimitar gets just that much more deadly. Not super cinematic, but it's a great ship to run. Actually, I ran one in this last Fremont tournament that we did. That's again to anyone watching. That is another great point that I'm going to bring up here. You aren't restricted with Tabletop Simulator to what cards you own. Everything is available to you. So if you want to run a Federation fleet with all Type 8 phasers and upgraded phasers and just completely decked out, by all means, please do. Everything is here. Okay, going back to movement. Say we're running Scout 608. We're running a Borg ship. So how do the Borg move? Say we're going to do the Borg 1 and turn to the right. Well, we're going to move the Enterprise just forward 1. And then we have this nice 90-degree rotation here. Technically that's left. Let's move forward 1 and rotate right. So there we go. That's how a Borg ship would move. You would move it and then you rotate it 90 degrees. That's a Borg movement. Now the other pads for the larger bases, they're no different than running this pad. They each have their sync buttons there, and you have to place the model on the middle and hit sync. And then of course you just move it according to their dial. So no different there. Now, okay. Let's advance this little scenario a little bit. Let's say the Reliant wants to attack the Enterprise. Well, let's say this is after. So the Enterprise has already moved. Let's put an evade next to it. Say it's already didn't evade as an action. Now the Reliant has moved, and the Reliant is going to do its action, and the player wants to measure for target lock. Now you can use the measuring stick if you'd like, the range ruler, but the nice thing about Tabletop Simulator is that these ships have a built-in rangefinder. This little circle with the dash through it has this nice little grid here. You can see that these lines are based on arcs. So these 2 outer lines here, those are the 90-degree arcs. And then, of course, these 2 here are the 180-degree arcs. So everything in this range is in range. We can see that Mr. Spock Enterprise is within range 1 of the Reliant. So this is going to be range 1, range 2, and then the green circle is range 3. It's a nice quick way to figure out who's in range and what action to use. So the Reliant is indeed in range 1. So the Reliant wants to do a target lock. So it's going to target lock the Enterprise. Just like that. And then if we check the Enterprise firing arc, we will also notice that the Reliant is not in range, or it's not in the arc. It is in range, it's not in arc. So the Enterprise doesn't have a shot this round. Now, one common thing that a lot of people do is you can see when this whole thing gets lit up, people like to grab it and move it around. Don't do that. And I say that because if you accidentally delete this, you have to pretty much reload your game to get it to work again. The easiest way to get this off your screen is to hit this X button. Sometimes tabletop is a little finicky with this and it won't let you hit that X button. So one of the tricks that we've found is just loading up somebody else's rangefinder and then hitting the X button to close out of it, and it'll clear everything off. Um, so that's that. I believe that's pretty much all of the basics that you really need to know to play. Um, Again, you're not. That's one of the things I like about Tabletop Simulator is that you're not bound by your own collection. Um, Everything is available to you. You can run as many copies of anything as you want. You can set up any kind of scenario that you want. If you wanted a large Dominion War scenario, you can set it up. Um, Now, we were going to talk about playing with other people. Oh, I want to cover drone tokens because that's that special token that I pulled out of the bag, or I pulled out of the box of extra stuff over here. So this is a drone token. And again, just like the dice, it has 9 faces on it. So if I were to hit 9, it brings up and it says that you have 9 drones. And then of course, same thing going down the list. So that's drone tokens in a nutshell. Again, you just, you know, as if you were in a game, just place it over your captain's skill. That is pretty much it. This other thing here, this mission database, it's not complete. I'm actually thinking about setting that up as one of my goals for the next update that I submit to Crazy Vulcan, is to scanning all of the missions in. But it's got a good amount of missions in here that you can play. Yeah, it's just got the mission cards in there. Um, Let me see. I'm just looking around the map here to see if I forgot anything. I don't believe I did. We talked about the island of Notachi, where to find everything if you need it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So let me open tabletop on my other desktop here, and then I will give an example of playing against another player. While I get that set up, let's talk about kind of the Fremont Reformation tournament stuff. I do want to give them a plug, just because I do a lot of their stuff. I do a lot of things for them, including streaming their games. I'm one of the main I'm one of the main commentators. I don't know if there are any single player missions in there. Um, I'm not 100% sure which ones are single player. I think the chase is from the rule book. That might be single player. Oops, pull that one out. No, that's 3 players. I know the Kobayashi Maru. Hey, that one's in here. Kobayashi Maru is a good one to play against yourself. Granted, it's not a one-player scenario, but you can control both sides if you need to. You can just set the cards up in front of you. Man, I don't. But yeah, if you have any of the cards, if you have any of the cards physically that are single players, you can set everything up that way. That's a good question, and hopefully I will have it fixed in one of the upcoming updates. But I don't know when that'll be pushed through. So I don't have a very good answer for you, unfortunately. Um, but I would highly recommend running the Kobayashi Maru scenario to kind of getting used to everything. All right, so um, yeah, so the Fremont Reformation League. I know that that term right there sounds again daunting because that means competitive play, and I, if you're wanting to play with other people online um, over through Tabletop Simulator, or I would highly recommend that you come check us out with the Fremont Reformation League because yes, it is competitive. Um, but the way that the league is set up is that there are different echelons, different divisions. So the top division is the original. It's called the original series division, TOS. That we're talking like that's your top tier, super competitive division. Um, that's your Joseph Vanderyacht's in there. He's a couple. He's won U.S. national title a couple times, world title. Scott Altman's up there. Brian Gillespie's up there. He's the four-time and reigning UK champion. Um, very good, all very good peoples. Super competitive up in that group. Um, and we have the Next Generation is the group below it. Deep Space Nine, the group below that, and then we have a group that's called the Lower Decks. Now, I will freely admit that I am not a super competitive player. I like to play competitively sometimes, but I'm more in it for my own entertainment than trying to beat, say, Joseph Vanderyacht or Brian Gillespie. Um, if I catch him in a bad day, that's great. Uh, but those bad days are rare and far and few in between. That's why I like being in the lower decks division. I was in the lower decks for this most recent tournament, and it's players that like to play the game, and they're not super competitive. If you at the end of the tournament cycle, which lasts a couple of weeks, um, you have the option to get promoted up, or you have the option to stay in the division that you want to be. So if you don't want to go to say you start out in the lower decks division and you don't want to be promoted up to Deep Space Nine division, you can just opt to stay in lower decks and stay not super competitive. Um, Now that's the other thing that a lot of people are kind of iffy about is the amount of games and the time commitment to it. If I will say that you do play. I think for lower decks we played 4 games. 4 games over the span of 3 or 4 weeks, possibly 5. Um, and you are free to schedule with your opponent with whatever time works for you. We are very flexible on letting these games get played because the whole point is that we want people to play the games. Not all games are streamed, but a good majority of them I try to stream myself, or we get somebody to record them and they get put up later. If you're not cool with that or you don't want that to happen, just say I don't want my game streamed, and that's fine. No one's gonna make fun of you, or nobody's gonna say anything to you. So yeah, if you're interested, please reach out to us. I'll put the link. I'll put a link up on the Discord. Um, I'll put up. Yeah, I closed the Discord down. I will. Excuse me. Sorry. We'll get a link up to the Discord somewhere. And if you're interested in coming and just participating in the lower decks to see what it looks like, or you just want to come in the Discord and hang out and see how we're doing, um, that'd be great. Because there are two Discords, two main Discords for the Attack Wing community. There is the Tabletop Simulator Discord for Attack Wing, and then there's the Fremont Reformation Discord for Attack Wing. And I will tell you that the Fremont Reformation one is more alive per se than the other Discord. You'll find more players there. You'll find more people talking about builds. Um, but yeah, there's that. The plug for the Fremont. I highly recommend checking them out. Um, if you'd like, here, let's do this. If you'd like the Discord information, you can send me a message either through Facebook or any other means that you can find how. Probably Facebook. You guys have seen my post there. Most of you guys have seen the posts and came here. So send me a message. Say, hey, I want to check it out, and we'll get you hooked up with the link to the Discord. I don't have my Discord open right now to get that link. Maybe I can. Maybe I'll do that too. Okay, so I got my other desktop is up and running. So let's go back out to the main menu. Say you're wanting to play with your friend who lives, say, in the United Kingdom, the UK. Super easy to do over Tabletop Simulator. I have already created the server on the other end, and I will show you what that looks like here real quick. So say your buddy in the UK says, hey, I want you to make the server. Go ahead and make the table for us. Super easy. You hit create. You go to multiplayer. You type in, you create a server name. And then you don't have to, but I would create a server password. That way it allows for just the people that you want to come into the table to come in. That way it avoids any kind of random people showing up and flipping the table over. Which I'll show you that as well. Once everything's done. That's a little fun thing. But so you hit create server, and then your friend can search for that server. Absolutely, I will get the links. Alright, so yep, you hit create server, and your friend can search for the server name. Now say your friend over in the UK set the server up. You hit join. Let's get that out of there. So there are going to be tons and tons of games getting played. You can see that the first result is because I'm friends with my other account. I'm friends with myself. But if we were to type in, say, X-Wing, you can see there's tons and tons of X-Wing out there getting played. Obviously, it's the more popular game, but if we search for Attack Wing, we should get our result up, or we can search for the Star Trek Attack Wing for the server name that we set up, that your buddy set up. So there it is, STAW. You select it, you hit connect, and then you put the server password in if there is one, and then the game will be connecting. And there we go. You are now on a table with your friend. As you can see, there are, once everything gets loaded in here, as you can see, there are now 2 hands on the table. One being controlled by my desktop, and one being controlled by the Twitch desktop. And that is how you play a game of Attack Wing with somebody else. You bring them in, and everybody loads their fleets in like how I showed you through the objects. Oh, okay, that'll be important. Let's do this. Let's reverse this. Oh, let's go to menu. Main menu. Something I forgot. It's super important when you make a table like that. So I'm going to create the server here on this desktop. Multiplayer, same server name, same password. Let's hit create server. My other desktop's going to join. Let's load up Star Trek Attack Wing. Now my other desktop is coming in. Okay, there we go. So now you can see that up here in the top right hand corner, my other desktop is in here. Now, the reason why I had to reverse this is because when you join somebody else's table, they have to do what's called it's called promoting you. So right now, my other desktop that I brought into the game cannot do anything outside of choosing a color. So it can't click on anything. It can't bring a fleet in. It can't do anything. So how do we fix that? We need to promote them. To do that, we go to their name. We right click. Or no, I'm sorry. We left click. From here, it'll bring down this nice little menu. And there is a promote button. So we hit promote. We say yes. And now you should be able to see there is a blue hand here on the screen. Before, they weren't able to pick up any of these templates, and now they should be able to move them around. So that's important if you're going to play a game of Attack Wing with somebody. You need to promote them up. And with that, I think that is everything that you really have to know. Okay, the last thing I have written here in my notes that I probably should have circled is when you are playing with somebody else, there is no chat function to tabletop. So, what we do for the Fremont Reformation League and then the other Attack Wing Discord is we have tables. We call them holodecks set up. So you can use those holodecks. You can sit there. You can bring your buddy in there, and you guys can chat that way, so you know what you're doing. Because the chat box that's in tabletop is hard to use. There is a chat box down here in the bottom left hand corner. It's super hard to use and it disappears. It doesn't always stay open. So the easiest way to talk to somebody you're playing is through Discord. Speaking of, I have Discord here. Come on now. Alright, let's get the links for both. Other than that, I have been talking now for about an hour and 40 minutes, according to my stream timer here. I do see that Dan is here, or at least he was. I know he can definitely attest. I taught him how to play Attack Wing on tabletop. I know he can kind of. There he is. I know he can kind of vouch for what I'm saying. It's intimidating when you first load it up, but the more and more you play with it, the more and more you play against other people, the easier tabletop gets to get used to. It becomes easier. Let's see. Invite. So I highly recommend I definitely recommend finding people to play. It's a link. Either and you know you don't have to be a part of the league. Um, you don't have to be a part of the league to. Sorry, doing so. You don't have to be a part of the league to play a game with somebody that's in the Fremont Reformation. You can just say, "Hey, I'm new. I'd like to play a couple practice games," and generally somebody is there. Um, oh, nice, Trevor. Um, I'm glad you made it here. Um, so here's the Discord link for. Let's do this Fremont Reformation. So there's a Discord for the Fremont Reformation group. Yeah, just once you're in one of these groups, just say, "Hey, I'd like to play a couple practice games with somebody. I'm new," and generally somebody will help you. They'll come in, they'll play. You know, sometimes people are very competitive, but a lot of the people that are in the Fremont Reformation group specifically, um, we want to we want to help other people. We don't want to be super competitive all the time. Star Trek. All right, there are the Discord invites for both. You guys, anybody can join them from there. I put them in the chat box. Um, that is everything, though. I don't believe I am forgetting anything. Um, so I look forward to seeing some of you guys pop up in the Discords. Don't be afraid to say hello. You can send me a message directly on Discord. Um, if you're wanting to do a practice game with myself or somebody, you can always message me either on Facebook or Discord, and I will try to we'll try and work out a schedule to get that done. Um, Other than that, if you have any other questions, please don't be hesitant to ask. Especially for those of you guys who are watching in the future, um, please feel free to message me. Um, I'm generally pretty quick on messaging. Um, that's the other thing I wanted to mention is um, I know Dan is here. He can attest to what I've been saying. He can also attest to how the last league went because he actually played in this last league round with us too. After playing a handful of games of Attack Wing on TTS um, and he'll tell you that the lower decks division is definitely probably one of the better divisions to learn in um, because there are people like myself who are in that division where I'm more focused on making sure the gameplay everybody's got having a good time versus being super competitive. Um, yeah, if you want to reference these back, the video will be available on Twitch for the next. I think it's 2 weeks. These videos are available on Twitch. Other than that, I'm going to download this video and I'm going to upload it to the YouTube channel. It is called Antares Shipyard. I could put a link to the YouTube as well, as you can find a lot of the Fremont Reformation games are being streamed. They'll both be here on Twitch and YouTube. Um, so let me grab that. That would have been smart to have when I started. All right, so thank you everybody for watching. Looks like we have been on for an hour and 45 minutes now. Um, I'm going to stay on for a little bit longer just in case anybody else has any questions. So at the 2 hour mark, I will end the video. But other than that, I don't believe I have anything else to show anybody who's stuck around for this. I hope you guys got everything you needed to know or saw everything you needed to play a game. either against somebody or against yourself in one of those scenarios. I highly recommend, again, the Kobayashi Maru scenario. I know it's not a one-player scenario, but um, controlling both sides will help you. Ooh. Controlling both sides will help you get a feel of moving the ships. Um, I think the one thing I didn't show was sensor echoing. Um, so I can do that real quick. Let's bring in. You know what? No, let's do this. Let's go and let's find my. I got so much stuff in here. It just needs to be organized. Let's go with my last lower decks fleet. As you can see, it takes a minute for everything to load in. Just that's how everything is. So there is my scimitar. So let's go ahead and sink that down. Okay. I don't want this. There we go. Okay. So there's that. So now let's say the scimitar is cloaked and we want the sensor echo with it. So sensor echoing is as easy as looking looking at this the way you want it. FSB. So if we're going to sensor echo 2 to the right, F is front, S is side, and B is back. So we can move it along any part of the base as if we were in an actual game. That's one way, the easiest way to sensor echo. The other way, you can use the templates and put it wherever you want and move it over. Generally find this the easiest way. The way it gets really hard is when your ship is spun around and you're trying to figure out. So say your ship is backwards and you want the sensor echo to and back in the left-hand direction. So you hit this button here. You can just hit undo and it'll move the ship back, just like as if it were a movement. The way we have it set up in the Fremont Reformation League, because a lot of us don't use the templates, you can do this multiple times to see which one you like, and then you can commit after doing that. That's a way of getting around the measuring phase for that. So that's a sensor echo. It's really kind of self-explanatory on the pad there. But yeah, F, S, and B, front, side, and back. Other than that, I really believe that is everything. One of the things that most people are going to have a hard time with is going to be the builder. As long as you follow the steps that I gave, you guys should be good with that. Just replace this text and hit the build list, and it'll pull everything you need. There shouldn't be any bugs with it. We have extensively overhauled the builder itself, so everything should work. Other than that, we are pretty much done. Again, I thank everybody for tuning in, and I know it's getting kind of late. Yeah. If you haven't followed the channel already, please do consider giving us a follow. We're trying to reach that 50 follower threshold. I think there's a couple of perks that come with that for the Fremont Reformation League, because that's my main thing that I stream here. I don't stream anything else, so everything is going to be attack wing related. Um, so if you're interested in watching the league that way, give us a follow. It'll notify you when we go live. Um, Again, thank you all for tuning in. Um, yeah, absolutely. No, not a problem. I'm happy to try and help and get the word out. Um, I know I know Crazy Vulcan, who's done a lot of work on this mod. He's also he's been recruited by the X-wing guys, so he's doing a lot of the X-wing mod for them. Um, and he has talked about with me in our local play group because he's actually a member of our local play group. Um, the how different it is because the X-wing mod has a lot more players. Um, and as you saw from when I was joining a multiplayer game, the just the sheer amount of X-wing games that are going on at the moment is crazy. Um, so we're definitely trying to get that, um, trying to get some kind of system like that set up with the Fremont Reformation League. That is the overall goal. I know the state of the world has kind of helped, kind of forced this into being. Um, but once everything returns to normal, I don't see it going away either. So we're hoping to get more players in. I'm hoping that these videos or video, depending on how many more of these I do, help people come and want to play. That's my overall goal for you. Um, but other than that, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. It doesn't look like there are any other questions. Uh, so again, thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you guys in the future. Good night.